about tanking in World of Warcraft. This video is meant to be a PSA to Blizzard as well as the general tanking community because I foresee a massive tank shortage going into Midnight Season 1, which is not good. We need way more tanks playing the game, not less tanks. And right now, I think there's going to be a huge tank crisis going into Midnight Season 1. It is hard to tank right now. It feels a lot more like the war within Season 1, and I don't know if you remember that, but Grim Batol, among other things, was kind of terrible to play for everyone. When tanking is not good in World of Warcraft, everyone suffers because you cannot get through the dungeon and nobody likes it when the tank dies. So I'm going to be talking about my thoughts after playing beta for 37 days now, looking at these new dungeons and just in general my thoughts on tanking. Here we go. Right now, one of the reasons why no one wants to tank on beta is because it feels a lot more like work instead of play. Instead of just vibing to music and playing the game, you are required to play at high efficiency. You cannot make a mistake. If you make a mistake as a tank, the key is over. You cannot recover this. This isn't just going into Midnight, but it's also on current retail. You cannot recover when the tank makes a mistake. Now, some people love that responsibility, but other people find it to be so terrifying and anxiety-inducing that they can't even approach the role. The amount of times that I've heard people say, I don't want to play tank because I'm scared of letting my team down, I've just heard that so much since I started making videos a year ago. And I think there's a way to solve it. I actually have a solution, but I want to talk about a few more problems first. Number one, the homework required for tanking is insane. You have to know before the dungeon starts what the route is, how to group the poles, and effectively, you have to have memorized the entire dungeon layout before the key even starts, which is really tough going into a new season. Because how are you supposed to know without having seen the dungeon? Most people don't play beta. So the very first time you zone into that dungeon, you're going to be learning it. And it sucks as a tank to be learning the dungeon live. It's very difficult to do, and you're expected to already have this knowledge. The next thing I want to talk about is that aggro as a mechanic needs to be fixed or solved. I understand why it exists, but in pugs, it is unbelievably bad when the DPS starts zugzagging early. And if you've ever played tank before, you know it's an issue. In higher coordinated groups, you wait until the tank has actually pixel stacked the mobs because you do more damage. But no one ever taught this to pug DPS, so they're going to start blasting, and there are some tanks that are way better at snap threat than others. Just fix that as a mechanic. Give all tanks the ability to create genuine snap threat, and you'll be fine. They don't have to have perma-threat because then kiting becomes an issue. I understand why threat exists, but I'm just saying make snap threat infinitely buff it. I swear it will help a lot, okay? So that's the aggro problem solved. The next thing is that it's a completely thankless job, just like healing, but one of the problems with tanking is that you're working so hard to time that high key that you're doing, and no one really realizes it. You don't really get thanked for tanking. You only ever get blamed for tanking. You are sitting there, and at the end of a dungeon, a hard dungeon that you've just fought for, when you all time it, your DPS say, oh, that was great, go next. And you as a tank are just like, oh my God, is it over? We did it? Oh, nice. Okay, I'm ready for a break. And then your DPS say, hey, we got another key from this. You want to go? And you're like, okay. You peel yourself out of your chair. You sit up nice and straight, and you say, all right, I can do one more. I got this. All right, it's only been 8 hours of gameplay. I got this. So you log in and you go and you make a mistake. Boom, key's over. That tank is terrible. Never want to play with him again. It is incredible, the responsibility and just how much of a thankless job tanking can be. And I don't think it's rewarding. That is the biggest problem, and one of the ways I think you can fix tanking in World of Warcraft is by making it way more rewarding. What is it that tanks want? Because I find tanking to be omega fun. My favorite role in World of Warcraft. There's a reason I play it. Why do I play tank? What is it about tanking that I genuinely like and enjoy? I talked about this on the podcast that is coming out right when this comes out. There's a podcast with Brutal Static. It was awesome. I got to talk about the state of tanking. Going into Midnight, we talked with different healers, Mad Skills, and LB. Shout out to all of them. It was a very fun podcast episode. It'll be out on his channel if you want to go check it out. But what I want this video to be is a PSA because I think there's a solution. Here it is. Tanking is about leading and carrying your friends through a dungeon. It is not about being an omega stress and sweat lord. It's actually not fun when you have to fight for your life. It is more fun when you're OP. The reason that tanks are not OP is because they were, well, one of them was, at the end of Dragonflight. If you remember, we had VDH supremacy because double sigils existed and VDH was immortal. So for 2 seasons, we had this absolute giga chat of a tank who could solo CC packs. And what would happen is the Demon Hunter would go pull everything. First pull of Azure Vault, you do this massive pull, and your whole team would die. And they would run back, and they would die again. You'd accrue 10 deaths, boom, like this. But the Demon Hunter would live, because he was immortal. So he would just be there, and he'd be like, don't worry, guys, you run back. I'll just be here. I'll just wait. And that wasn't fun gameplay. So they nerfed tanks, and then we had the War Within Season 1. You remember that? How fun was that? It was not. And there was a tank shortage in the War Within Season 1 because the level of effort that you had to put in just to time that key was exasperating. You did not feel rewarded, you felt relief. This is a game that you play for fun. Will this conversation solve tanking at the highest level? Maybe not. But you know what doesn't exist at the highest level? The majority of players. Going into Midnight, everything has been simplified except tanking. Healers are way easier. They still have their challenges. DPS, significantly easier. But tanking is weaker, not stronger. If anything, tanking is harder. These dungeons have a lot of unnecessary tank mechanics. Additional magic damage inflicted on melee hit. Why does that exist? It doesn't need to. Think about it. Who is taking that mechanic? No one gets meleeed aside from the tank, and if they do, at pretty much any reasonable key level, they die anyways. So why is there additional magic damage on 7 or 9 or 13 different mobs across these dungeons? Why is there healing absorbs applied to tanks? I don't understand why these mechanics have to exist. You're already getting mollywopped. You're getting hit so hard on a lot of these pulls. I'm thinking Nexus in particular, one of the new dungeons. There's a pull that has a tank mob that gives you a healing debuff, a tank mob that does additional arcane damage on hit, and a tank mob that does an AoE to your group, and a thing that gives swirlies to the ground, and a thing that does a stun. Why? Just tank the tank mechanic out of it. Because tanks don't actually feel good when you're like fighting for your life the whole time. Tanking feels good when you are giga confident and can lead the team. If a tank dies in a key, everyone suffers. Make tanks very OP. Give them competitive damage and then lock it so you can't play another tank in a Mythic Plus dungeon. That's the solution. Make it so that you cannot start a Mythic Plus dungeon with more than one tank in the party. There is a few niche scenarios I can think of where that might be frustrating, but for the overwhelming percentage of keys that are done, you don't play 2 tanks. Play 1 tank. I'm not saying that a tank should do 100% of a DPS's damage in keys. Fair enough. 80%. Tanks doing big numbers is fun. And this is a conversation. Before you get up in arms about this, we need more tanks playing the game. I'm just desperate out here playing beta. It's so hard to find tanks on beta. I am the tank, and I don't even want a tank. And everyone that I have talked to has said the same exact thing. Actually, it's very difficult to find tanks on beta because you're not getting IO. And if you're not getting IO, there is literally no reward to playing it. It is the most anti-fun role because you're locked in the whole time. A single mistake, a single second that you don't move the boss perfectly, a single this, whole key's over. Whereas DPS are coasting, listening to Call Me Maybe, playing with one hand, and doing self-soothing activities with the other hand. They can do whatever. So I think that the disparity between the roles has gotten way bigger because everything is a little bit simpler and easier. But they took tools away from tanks but made the tank damage a lot more similar to the War Within Season 1 instead of the last season, where tanks feel a lot more powerful going into these dungeons. So if tanks are constantly getting checked, and healers have less cooldowns, and tanks have less options, I don't think that's good for the game. They can solve this. Right now, there are 2 tanks on beta that are incredibly powerful, and they feel decent to play at the very least. And there are 4 tanks, that means, that are just like mid. Buff the tanks that are mid up do not nerf the tanks that are up here. If you have Prot Pally and VDH, do not nerf those down. Because if all tanks feel weak, we're in for a bad season. This is a fair warning that if there are not, they're not going to rework the dungeons, I don't think. I don't think they're going to tank these tank mechanics out. But if they don't do something about this, we're in for a rough season. So I hope that what happens from this video or any of the testing that we have on beta, they got to find a way to make tanks feel really powerful. I'm not saying that they shouldn't ever be checked. There are still dozens and dozens of tank mechanics, even if you take out some of the additional magic damage on hit type stuff. But, man, this is a fun game. I want the ability for people to enjoy the role of tanking to a pretty decent key level. And if you want to learn it past that key level and really push for even higher and higher and higher and higher, then you progress and you get better at it. Rotationally, tanks are not that complicated, but the role of tanking is unnecessarily hard right now, and you can fix that. Please fix it.